I didn't quite believe that I was the one being talked about. So please try and give me a bit of a round of applause. Maybe that can help. Well, thank you very much, and congratulations, Pascal. Our special guest of honor, my fellow guest speaker, I should say Mr. President, World President, Your Excellency, distinguished past presidents, and ladies and gentlemen. The topic of my speech, I think, is a bit intimidating, and I hope you will understand when I get a little too emotional about it and try not to derail. Leadership quagmire, communications masterstroke. Now that's quite an intimidating topic. Leadership is a major challenge to Africans, I'm told. And sometimes when you look at leadership, you need to understand whether you're referring to service or you're referring to directives. But the dictionary meaning, part of it, says leadership is service. And what we find in Africa is that leadership may not be service, because sometimes the leaders are often made to feel like they are gods. Unfortunately, that in itself has become an aberration, because such leaders, if they are one, find themselves towing that line. Initially, it's not their fault, because those who put them there start to worship them, and they feel the power. And when that power gets to you, it becomes intoxicating, and you know what that means. I wanted to do a PowerPoint presentation. I said, no, let me discuss with you and let you know that this is my thoughts, based on observation, based on experience, based on the fact that when a criminal makes money, everybody goes singing his praise. And when somebody makes legitimate money, sometimes they don't know the difference. But you find that those who work hard, they know how they are received. They know how to present themselves. And I'm glad to say, we have had a family friend, and my claim to fame is always that I know and I like those who allow me to be their family friends. We've had a family friend who over time and years had worked so tirelessly to become something in life. And in doing so, was helping those who were coming alongside as well. I'll talk about that person later. But let's look at leadership. Leadership is service. Communication is the tool for encouraging good leadership. And it runs both ways, because you give information from one source, another source receives that information, then there's feedback. That feedback means a lot. It's a machinery for progress, for development. But oftentimes, when we do not know what our roles are, we become victims of circumstance. And so, by so doing, we do not know when to draw a line. I was once in charge of information and orientation in Edo State. That was in 2001 to 2002. And it was quite an experience for me, because I was to say what is and what should be. But I should know how to say it so that the people that were being led will understand what it means. But sometimes the people want to hear a certain language. And so you're forced to say it the way they want to hear it. And when that happens, you have a problem. Another time, the leadership wants you to say certain things certain ways. Whether it's true or false, you have to say it so. And if it's glaring that it is not true, there's a way you must present it so that it looks like truth. Now see, the conflict of interest start to evolve. And what that means, therefore, is where do you stand How principled are you? What do you represent? Are you a good bridge between those who are led and the leadership? Can you create a good rapport between the leadership and the citizenry? Questions like these often arise. What we're having is a society that cannot stand its own, a society that cannot express itself the way it ought to be expressed. That society has a big problem. When you see something that is wrong and you cannot state it, then you have a problem. When you are able to state it and leadership does not respond accordingly, there's even a bigger problem. So, how is the world led? Nigeria is not the worst country. That's not true. It's not true. Nigeria can never be the worst country. We are the most critical of our services and of our actions. But Nigeria has a big problem of understanding what its role to be, what its role should be, and so stand by it, and what it should do as a leader of Africa. Let's start from home. Nigeria is a giant of Africa. Nigeria is 170 million people. Nigeria has a lot of tribal or ethnic groups. But somehow, Nigeria manages to live in peace and harmony. Sometimes, when leadership interferes wrongly, Nigeria becomes a victim of religious strife, ethnic sensitivity, and all of that. When you draw the line, or draw a map, roadmap into how this conflict arises, it's simply because certain leaders use those who are obedient to them against one another. And that creates a problem. The problem is you have drawn a sensitivity to the mind of the individual you're using, and it becomes the conflict against the person you're supposed to interact with, and so there's disagreement. Then there's war. I do not know how Boko Haram started, but I've read certain stories and I felt sad because somewhere along the line it could have been averted. But today we're grappling with some of the biggest problems, and unfortunately we're being rated a terrorist country. Nigeria is an oil producing country. We were number 6 or so in the world. And I'm being told now that Angola may have overtaken us. But again, somewhere along the line, we had problems with the Niger Delta. It started, and then Northeast became another. A bit of information management could have solved the problem. Leadership interaction with those in the lower group, the citizens, would have helped to solve the problem. Sensitivity to the needs of the people, the plight of the people, would have solved the problem. How information is passed from one hand to another would have also solved the problem. But what happens is, when information passes out, there's so much interpretation given to it, poor management of such information goes from hand to hand, and then Nigeria is the biggest critic of itself. And so foreign media just takes on us and deals with us as best they can. What can we do? We just help fire the embers of it. Information is key to progress. It's key to development. But if it's not well managed, we know what the problem will be. Let's just see what has happened with the APC government. I'm sorry I have to go political a bit. What happened was you had conflict of information management from the special advisor to media and information, publicity rather, in the presidency. He had the Honorable Minister of Information at the ministerial level, and they were talking at variance at some points in time. And they were confusing the polity, the citizens. And of course, the media, instead of helping to solve it, fired it. So what then happened was social media, which has become the sharpest form of information dissemination, took it over. So you have millions of versions of the same story. Who do you believe? You don't know. So this leadership quagmire is not because the leaders don't know what they are doing. It's just that they are not able to manage where they find themselves. And so because of that, there is one big conflict after another. So we are crisis managers, we are short fuses that are not able to slow down the process. And so when you thou deal with that, it becomes, how do I do it? What do I do? What should I be doing? Let's just manage the crisis and move on. If you manage crisis wrongly, you can't move on. There's no way you can move on. But if you make enough effort to try and sort out the source of information and put the information correctly out and speak with one voice, then there'll be a good source. There'll be a good chance for the people of Nigeria who know so much to move in one accord, in peace and harmony, and the fact that today is a day that I would like to celebrate briefly, because this man who was on my show how many months ago became a world president. We thought it was a joke. But the day he left, after he performed, I said to myself, he is going to be a world president. I'm hoping that he will be a president of Nigeria, and I'm hoping that I'm also hoping that he will understand, having chosen this topic, that communication is key to good leadership. Freedom of information is key to carrying the people along. And the essence of carrying the people along is when you bury it all on the table and you hide nothing. Now let me go to the family friend I talked about earlier. Today we celebrate a lady who is a special guest of honor today. This lady started simply, but she maintained a stance, and we continued seeing her grow over the years. But she has been a leader in her own right. And I knew in those days when she fought Fadana. Was it Fadana it was called, madam? Fadana, yes. Now, I brought her up because, one, you invite her to a place and she comes. She has come to share with you how leadership should relate with those that are led. And I also know for a fact that in playing the role she plays today, maybe I shouldn't dwell on that, but also just stress the fact that the humility cuts across. And so you are seeing somebody who knows where she's going, and I'm hoping that she'll carry people like Pascal along, and people who understand hard work, progress, and development with her. Mrs. Folonsho Alakija, congratulations for being who you are. Sometimes I wonder how you manage, but I'm seeing you looking, there's no stress in your face. Well, that's good enough for me. That's my claim to fame. But coming back to the reality of today, Nigeria needs to understand that do not criticize yourselves. Do not run yourselves down, because that will not help you. What should help you is the rule of law. If you can obey the rule of law, then the issue of communication will become less and less difficult. How do you do that? Ordinary obeying traffic lights is enough reason, because that's number one form of communication. The green, the yellow, and the red lamps, they just show at different times. The red tells you to stop. Do not forget the fact that you need to stop. But the yellow has warned ahead of time, maybe about 6 or maybe 10 seconds, I'm not sure, that you should prepare to stop. And so when the green goes, you have 10 seconds, that's enough time to slow down and pause so that the red can stop you, and then you move on when it's due for green again. But Nigerians are not that patient. So the leaders that you condemn, who are themselves very guilty, are coming from the same stock of those who are not law-abiding. That's where the vicious cycle comes from. How do we now solve that? I'm rigmaroling, but it's very important that you understand that your role as a Nigerian is to first and foremost be proudly Nigerian. Your role as a Nigerian is to first and foremost understand that you too can be a world president. Your role as a Nigerian is ask yourself, why do policemen, Nigerian policemen, move out of Nigeria, excel outside Nigeria, come back to Nigeria and misbehave? These are many questions begging for answers. So ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to bore you and I don't want to take too much of your time, but just to sensitize your mind, make you understand that no matter how you look at it, I'm proudly Nigerian. I'll continue to try to do my best. I don't know how I got here, but I know I've been struggling all my life, and I thank God for that, because otherwise people like Pascal and Madam here will not have looked at me twice. I thank you.